Welcome to Marquette University Law School. This is our On the Issue series, our continuing series of conversations with news and policymakers, people we like to say are doing important and interesting work in this region and beyond. Today we are joined by Marquette University's Vice President and Director of Athletics, Larry Williams. Won't you please give him a warm welcome to Eckstein Hall. Great to have you here, Larry. Thank you. We're glad to have Larry here, although he really doesn't have anything on his plate right now, and these are very slow days for him and Father Pilar's and others here at the university. And we will spend some time talking about the decision to leave the Big East and become part of a new conference. But I wanted to just begin with a couple of questions about your decision to come to this university. You had a very successful stint at the University of Portland, and you decided to come to Marquette about a year ago, a little over a year ago. What was it about this university, this place, that appealed to you?
Well, to answer that question, I'd probably have to back up a little bit and describe for you how I think, things that are important to me. And if you can indulge me a little bit, sure. It'll be responsive to your question. I was fortunate enough to be able to play collegiate and professional athletics and have a great experience, as many of you in the crowd, of being able to also go to law school and then afterwards to practice law. I was also fortunate to have a young family of budding athletes. My entire life and that of my wife's and our family is about using athletics to grow as a person. And so when I made the transition from pro athlete to practicing attorney, there was something missing still. I loved practicing law. The intellectual stimulation was fantastic, but I needed that competitive fire that only comes from being on the court or on the field, and I needed to be closer to that. So when I jumped into the profession of college athletics administration, it was sort of just a culmination of everything that I hold important in my life. I had a great opportunity to work with some wonderful people at the University of Portland. Father Bill Beauchamp was my boss at University of Portland, and he was a very instrumental person in doing some unique things in college athletics and growing them when he was back at University of Notre Dame. And so at Portland, we had a great time. We had to try and beat the rival Gonzaga Bulldogs, and we were never really successful doing that on the basketball court, but we killed them in soccer. In fact, we won national championships in soccer, and we had these other sports that were really, really successful. Our cross-country team was year in and year out in the top 10 in the nation. This from a very small private school in the Pacific Northwest. And I got a great appreciation for the depth of dedication to the same things that I felt were really important in the development of young men and young women. So when the opportunity came to consider coming to Marquette, originally I said, well, I thank you very much, but I'm very comfortable and really enjoy what I'm doing here at University of Portland. It couldn't be replicated or duplicated anywhere else. And the headhunter said, well, you really ought to think about that a little bit more, because Marquette's a unique place. And my vision of Marquette was that of many folks of my generation, which were Al McGuire running up and down the court with his unbridled energy, and the basketball players with their untucked shirts, and that's how I knew Marquette. And so after some cajoling, I said, okay, I'll take a look at it. And what I found coming here was that the University of Marquette University really did embody all those things that I consider important in the development of young men and young women. And I couldn't do anything but jump at the opportunity to do this on a very large scale at the elite level of college athletics. And so I feel very fortunate to be here. Long answer to a very short question. No, sorry.
That's fine. Larry's humble about his background. You were what, a two-time All-American at Notre Dame? And then went on to play about 5 years in the NFL. But I'm wondering about your college experience, having been a student athlete. How does that affect what you do today and the values you hold as an athletic director today?
Well, I hope that I draw on those experiences. When I was a young student athlete, I was like a lot of the other folks that are recruited. I had the opportunity to go to a bunch of great schools. USC, Ohio State, Stanford were some of the ones that I visited. And I ended up choosing University of Notre Dame, and I thought I was all that. Everybody must want me. I must be really something. And so I got on campus like many of our freshmen do when they come on campus, and man, I was full of myself. And it was probably the second practice when the varsity got back, and I was an offensive lineman, a sort of a spindly little guy at the time, and I still thought I was all that. And I pulled around on a trap, and they had this big linebacker who planted me in the ground, in my spot, like nothing I'd ever seen. And he stood over me, and he was yelling something at me, and all I saw was the spit coming at me. And I realized, I'm really not all that. So there are many of those experiences that our young men and young women get today that I just love watching, because from those experiences, you grow. You know where your weaknesses are. You learn how to work with teammates. You learn how to push yourself when nobody's looking. Now, I had fits and starts as an athlete. I had fits and starts as a student, and socially also I had to grow. But the experience as a student athlete, going from somebody that was full of himself to somebody who was humbled to somebody that I think got put on the right track, was something that was really valuable to me. And I love seeing it play out in our student athletes today. If you look at some of our guys and gals that are seniors on our teams now, you see that. Marquette does that really well. It really develops the student athlete from the time they're freshmen to the time they're seniors.
You have come at an interesting time in the world of college athletics. In the last year, I would say that college athletics has sort of lost its mind. It's gone mad in some respects. I'm wondering how you would characterize what's happened in the last year in college athletics.
I got to take a drink of water before I respond. College athletics hasn't lost their mind. It is an absolutely worthy pursuit. College athletics needs to be in our culture. The difficulty that we see and the things that we wrestle with and are uncomfortable with is this convergence of the economic model that's necessary to run an elite competitive in an elite competitive environment. And so what you're seeing in college athletics today is repositioning to try to take advantage of money that's available. And in some respects, you've got to cede some control to media companies, to sponsors, in order to get the investment to do the things you know are really good. And the NCAA, it's not a bad word, it's not a bad organization, it is us. And we're trying to use elite level competition to grow young men and grow young women. Now, if we maintain our focus on that growth, college athletics is a really worthy pursuit. But the times we get uncomfortable is when we lose sight of that as the sole purpose for college athletics. All the other business stuff is a necessary evil to what I hope we maintain as our core focus.
Seems like a lot of people believe that football is sort of driving the bus right now. But you made a fascinating comment a few weeks ago on a radio show about the fact that football may indeed be the sort of the prominent, the dominant force in college athletics today, but it may not always be that way. In fact, we should look maybe 15 years down the road. But why that could be was fascinating to me. It has something to do with football and the growing base of knowledge we have about brain injuries and things like that. Talk a little bit more about that. It was a fascinating observation, I thought.
Well, I'm not sure how fascinating it is, other than to say that I love, let me get straight, I absolutely love the game of football. It is a team game. It is a ballet that is at the just sort of the rawest sense, and it's an unbelievable teaching tool. It's an unbelievable art. I love the game, but we can't get so caught up in the results of this game without also recognizing the risks that are associated with it. So My career as a pro athlete and a college athlete is fraught with friends and former teammates that are really struggling today because there are, I am dead certain that there are adverse effects from the concussions that we never even knew we had. Every play, you're running.
You had them.
Oh, absolutely. Every play you're running, every play of every practice, you have a collision that is worthy of a concussion. And we're starting to learn now, unfortunately for some of my former teammates, that, it isn't, the end result is not worth the risk of the game. So as I think about where college athletics goes in 20 years, I want to be really mindful that it is a great opportunity to grow among all kinds of sports. And we shouldn't be solely focused on the pursuit of football and football dollars, because I think that sells us and our enterprise short. There's no guarantee that football will be around in the same current popularity and format that we see it today. There's no certainty to anything, but I would say that's going to be called to question. I've been asked to be part of a number of different lawsuits against the NFL, as different class actions are forming left and right regarding concussions, and that sort of brings home the point that, boy, we just want to be mindful of wholesale pursuit of one sport for the sake of some momentary popularity and some momentary fiscal benefit.
Well, Marquette has made a bold step, deciding to leave the Big East and join a new conference that is still in the works. Bring us up to date on where that process stands.
Yeah, I've got to see if our general counsel's in the room so that I can invoke the attorney-client privilege if we have this conversation. It's probably, you guys, the students probably remember learning about the attorney-client privilege. It probably doesn't exist here, so I'm not going to be able to say a whole lot about it. But we're really excited. At the end of the day, we're really excited about the opportunity to control our own destiny. To really, it's very infrequent that in college athletics, a group of schools has been able to redefine who they are and strive for things that they find as a common purpose. And I feel real comfortable about the schools that are aligned with us currently and the ones that we potentially could add. So I wholeheartedly support and encourage and congratulate the presidents for making that bold step in deciding to withdraw from the Big East and take control of their own destiny. So where are we now? Well, there are two issues that are going on. First is we as a group are withdrawing from the Big East, and that's fraught with all kinds of legal questions. There's plenty of work out there for you students. There's a lot of stuff going on because there's questions that are really deep, and it's hard to extract not just one school, but a group of schools from a long-standing conference. There are assets involved that will need to be negotiated. So there's reserve funds, straight cash dollars. There's marketing rights around a name. So there's probably some intellectual property lawyers in here that recognize the value or the liability associated with the use of the name of the conference as it's been constituted. And then there's a whole host of other questions related to obligations going forward in the media. So whole bunch of unwind questions. It's almost like a bankruptcy. There's a whole bunch of questions that I can't really get into very deeply, but we're wrestling with those right now. The next step, and almost a parallel step, will be how do you build up a new conference? So you got the very practical questions of where do you put the conference office? Who's calling the shots? Who's your media partner? Who's your sponsor partners? Where are you playing? All those questions. What sports are you playing, in fact? We have a bunch of questions relative to where are you going to go with, we know where the focus is in elite basketball. So you got basketball, and it's pretty formed in women's basketball, and the soccer's fit pretty well, and so does volleyball. But then when you get to the next group of sports, you kind of think about, what about lacrosse? Does everybody play lacrosse? How do you handle lacrosse if not all the schools are playing? And then of course the more individual sports of golf and track and field and tennis. Those are real questions that we got to wrestle with, and I'm anxious to get going on that work. In some respects, though, the unwind piece has got us a little bit in the what do the racehorses get caught in there? What is that? You know where the starting gate
right,
is?
Yeah.
We're kind of in that state right now where we just want to go, but we still have to make sure that we're real mindful of the unwind pieces.
Do you have an idea of how soon you'd like to begin play as a new conference? Is that a year out or 2 years out, or is it still to be determined?
Oh, we'd love to start next fall. We'd absolutely love to start next fall. That's not a high likelihood though, because of all the questions that I've talked about, and we have some legal obligations, some contractual obligations to follow through for up to 2 years with the old conference. Now I think cooler heads will prevail, and it will be somewhere in between that, between 2 years and this year. So if you do the math, I'm sure you can figure out when we're going to start. But again, I can't talk too much about the specifics of it, but we're anxious to get going.
We hear a lot about the Catholic Seven. I guess that's the way it's been referred to. You've got the Georgetown, Villanova, St. John's, Providence, Seton Hall, and then DePaul and Marquette. But a number of people have talked about the possibility of this being maybe a 10-team conference, even a 12-team conference. There are logical fits, at least to the average observer, a Xavier type of program, Creighton, Butler. I was struck by something Father Pilar said when he was seated in this chair about 18 months ago, and he said, I would just as soon not have our basketball conference determined by sectarian lines. There was even talk then about an all-Catholic conference, and I asked him about it. He said, I don't know how I feel about that, would it be helpful to have a conference that has a Butler in it or a Virginia Commonwealth or somebody else that's perhaps not a Catholic university?
Yeah, now this is me speaking personally,
Sure.
and so I won't speak on behalf of the other ones because those questions still have to be answered. But I believe that there are many schools that are non-religiously affiliated that hold the same principles that we do. All we have to do is look at Butler. So, yeah, they lost last night to LaSalle. That was a bit of an upset. But if you saw them playing against Gonzaga over the weekend, it was a fabulous environment. And it was very clear that they're committed to elite-level basketball. And automatically we're aligned with that because that's sort of one of the core principles that we 7 schools will be aligned around, a commitment to elite competition, especially in the sport of men's basketball. So clearly Butler fits that role. But one thing that struck me some time ago as to why Butler should also be in this conference was something that I heard on the radio when I was out in Portland. And I'm driving back over the hill, and it's the night of the championship game. And Butler's in the championship, and it's in Indianapolis. And I know you guys have probably all been to Indianapolis. It's really a cool place because everything is really contained, and the championship is part of the environment, and the whole environment is buzzing. Well, the commentator on the radio says to the analyst, and I won't mention the analyst. I won't on purpose. I won't mention him, but it says to the analyst, says, "Hey, I heard those Butler students." That are playing the championship game went to their classes today, all day Monday, all their Monday classes. What do you think about that, analyst? And the analyst says, "Oh, that's the dumbest thing in the world. This is the biggest day of their life." I almost drove my car off this windy road because no, that's exactly what college athletics should be about. There's going to be many things in their lives that are going to go on and be far more important than whether or not the basket goes in or who wins the game or what the game is. There's going to be so much more to their life than just the game. And I love the game and I love elite competition like nobody does. But that was exactly what college athletics should be about. That's why Butler fits with the 7 schools that have decided to withdraw, because it's about combining elite level competition in basketball and other sports with academic pursuits that are not compromised at all at any great extent, that there's a real commitment to academic growth. And that's why I really would think that a Butler would fit beautifully into this conference.
A couple more quick questions about creating this new conference. From a television standpoint, I know you're still in negotiations, and there are a variety of sports networks out there with whom to negotiate. But it does look pretty promising, does it not, for this university and for the other prospective members of this conference?
Yeah, it's remarkable, and it's really an affirmation of what we're about, and it feels really gratifying to know that these media companies, who basically take the pulse of the U.S. culture, because that's what they're selling to, they say, yes, we want in, we want a piece of that. And without going into any details, yes, many of those companies have reached out and said, look, we're willing to pay some significant investment in making sure that this thing works. We want to be your partner. We want to put that product on our programming. And so we're real bullish about that. And actually, again, it's just really gratifying to see that there's that affirmation from these companies.
I wanted to pick up on something you talked about. So you listened to this unnamed analyst talk about what a bad idea it was having students attend class on the day of the big game. And we all know that there are incredible pressures in college athletics to win. How do you strike the right balance? For example, at a university like Marquette, which has core values, a mission that it believes strongly in, and yet also a history of tremendous success, for example, on the basketball court, how do you strike the right balance given the pressures that exist today?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question that I can't answer in one setting. We in college athletics, this crisis, if you will, that we're in right now is just about that question. It's about what is that right balance? I'm confident at the Marquette we're absolutely positioned to do that, to succeed both in our goal of being successful on the court and on the field and everything else, but also we have a commitment to the development of young men and young women. And I believe that because I've been able to sit with our board, I've been able to sit with our president, Father Pillars, and I know that. I know it's part of this place. We love winning like nobody's business, right? We do. But I think at everybody's core, we also believe in those core fundamentals that we are about the Jesuit mission of growing young men and young women. And so I'm confident that Marquette gets it, and I'm hopeful that our new conference members get it. I'm very confident in that as well. But I'm also hopeful that the rest of college athletics also continues to embrace that balance. Could I just append to that? If we're only about sport and we're only about that competition, our shelf life is really short. Right? There's a reason why the NFL doesn't want to start a minor league operation a la baseball or a la what's the NBDO?
Yeah, developmental league.
Yeah, the developmental league. Yeah, there's a reason why the NFL doesn't want to do that, because it's a losing proposition. You won't make any money doing it. It's not a sustainable business model because it's not the elite level. What makes college athletics unique and viable is the fact that you're doing more than just competing on the field, and that's why there is a groundswell of demand across the country from our culture for that product. Otherwise, you look at, and I don't want to be demeaning of minor league baseball. Represented him as a lawyer and love the concepts, but the reality is that's a tough business, and it isn't on itself sustainable. So
I wanted to ask you a quick question about something that predates you. You came at an interesting time, a lot of success, for example, in the basketball program when you come on the job, but there were some not so great moments for the university in the year that preceded you, where the DA was critical of the way the university handled some allegations involving student athletes. Is all that behind us? Do you feel that the environment at this university is such that is one that you think it should be at this moment in time? Is that now a part of history?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying I believe that Marquette's soul has always been pure. Now, there's been some as you've described them, some unfortunate incidents that have put us in a point of actually questioning, hey, are we doing it the right way? And I think we've come out of that really healthy. There's been a number of initiatives across campus that have made sure that we pay attention to that we don't lose sight of that. Now, there are still some federal examinations, and I know that's public knowledge. There's still a Department of Ed evaluation going on. We don't know what the outcome of that's going to be or when that's going to be. So my hope is that yes, we get beyond the administrative pieces to move forward. But my hope is that we don't ever forget that. We got to learn from our losses, just like we got to learn from our wins, and we got to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that we can lose sight of our ultimate goal. I'm confident that we're headed in the right direction, but at no point will I guarantee that we'll never have another crisis. In the crisis, we've got to make sure that we're really on task with dealing with that head on and with complete honesty and frankness. And in that regard, I think we're really well positioned to be able to handle any challenges that we face going forward.
What are the greatest needs of your department at this moment in our history? Is it a new indoor practice facility? What do you need here to make things better?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for the lob. I'm not going to make a blanket solicitation of you all to pass the hat, but I completely believe in what Marquette is doing in its athletic mission, the athletic portion of its mission. In order to continue that, we are going to need continued investment in two things. One, in scholarship, right? So we've got many of our scholarships fully endowed, but we still have great need to give these young men and young women an opportunity to come to a school like Marquette is invaluable. Those people will go on and make this world a better place. So the investment in those areas is remarkable. We still have great need relative to scholarship. But the other one that you mentioned was facilities. I believe after my first year that the single greatest facility need is just as you described, a field house. When we go out and try to recruit a soccer player that aspires to play at the elite level, aspires to be the best that they can be, wants to play, that has dreams of playing on the Olympic teams and the World Cup teams, they want to train 24/7. I'm learning now that it gets cold here in the wintertime. Oh, my gosh.
Should remember that from your Notre Dame days.
Oh, my God, how quickly we forget, right? We want to give these really elite athletes the opportunity to train in an environment that will allow them to grow. And so they're not bundled by 4 sweaters and 2 hoodies and trying to move the ball around. But so too do the non-varsity athletes need a place to recreate in a field house, right? So, instead of having to figure out which party you're going to go to, well, maybe you're going to go. Maybe the group of guys and gals are going to go out and play frisbee golf or something. And if we have a place for folks to recreate indoors, I think that's the greatest need for this community, both from an athletic standpoint at the elite level and from a community standpoint. We sorely need that. So it'll be one thing that we'll be pursuing with some great vigor.
You mentioned soccer. It really was quite a remarkable year for men and women this year.
Yeah.
That's in a school that's going to feature basketball, as Marquette will in this new conference. Soccer has got to be right up there, though, too, in terms of your priorities and the commitment that this university makes to those programs.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Mike. It's been really fun fall when you think about it. Marquette is one of a very small handful of schools that placed both of their soccer teams in the NCAA tournament, and then also their volleyball program. So very few schools. So that's the likes of North Carolina and UCLA. And we're in all likelihood, men's basketball will be in there almost assuredly, men's basketball will continue to be there in the tournament as well. We are, as a athletic program, accomplishing just what we aspire to. We're graduating our young men and women, and they are learning how to be successful in all kinds of different environments. And from a university perspective overall, we are mentioned in a very prominent group of schools among the best in the nation. So again, when you talk about, a UCLA or a North Carolina, there aren't many schools that can do it like we do it, and I think we do it in a very unique way that is really, really special. So thanks for mentioning it. I couldn't be more pleased with Louis and Bond and Marcus heading the soccer and the volleyball programs. I mean, they've done a wonderful job, and the young student athletes are really, really remarkable.
A great competition in the Big East Conference. And I want to just circle back and kind of wrap up that part of our discussion.
Sure.
At the end of the day, the university left the Big East because you didn't feel what?
Well, let me try to characterize it in two ways. First, we didn't control our own destiny. Our destiny was being determined by a sport that we don't even participate in. And in my mind, that doesn't serve the purpose that is worthy of the investment that we make in this sport. And so it really did. It was unsettling to me. And so we left one because we couldn't control our own destiny. And I would say the other reason why we left is because we want to align with schools that have the same objectives in mind that we do. Those that really commit like we do to elite level competition and academic pursuits. So we were a disparate group in the Big East, and it's not to demean any of the schools. Every school's got a different mission, right? And I applaud every one of those missions. But that isn't who we need to align with in order to make ourselves everything that we can be. And so the other reason was the opportunity to be among a very like-minded group of schools.
Do you have any working titles for the new conference? I assume it's not going to be the Catholic Seven, especially if Butler's in it. But
No. And for the record, I did not say that Butler is going to be in.
Just said they'd be a great fit.
Oh, I think they'd be a wonderful fit. Yeah. I'm sure somebody's out there drawing up some papers to sue me. No names yet.
Yeah.
We think that there still is quite a bit of value in the Big East name, and so I think that's important to examine. And I'd love to get some expertise, some branding expertise in and give us an evaluation of what will it take to, I'm going to have to say this, but repair that brand image that has taken so many chinks in its armor. Is it worth it? Or are you better off from a branding perspective, from a marketing perspective, coming up with a new name? If you guys have some great ingenious thoughts, I know you guys are going to go register it in the trademark office first, and then you can give it to me. That's fine. But I'm more than willing to listen. So
I'll finish my questions with this final one, and then we'll take some from the audience. You did touch on your background and how this came to be for you, but we do have a few students in the room who are interested in sports law, and I would assume you use your law degree pretty much every day. I assume it's instrumental in what you're doing, especially at this moment.
It is remarkable. It is remarkable how useful this education is. And with the ABA, it's a fairly standardized educational process. I think back to one of my first days in class, and I finished practice. And the practices in the NFL are all day long. And so
you were doing this while you were playing in the NFL. You went to University of San Diego Law School while you were playing in the NFL?
Yeah, well, I was with the Browns for 5 years before I went down to San Diego, and so what I had to do was, as you guys all know, your torts class and all those first year courses are all year-long courses. So I had to go at night. So I practice all day, run home, and my very supportive wife, who was at the time having children and taking care of those children, would grab some food for me and put me on the car. And so I go down to law school 4 nights a week and go to class. And I remember sitting in one of my first classes in torts, and the professor was fantastic. But I wasn't really used to this Socratic method. And so, I'd spent the day getting the tar beat out of me by some big, huge dudes, and this professor happened to be fairly small, but man, was he pointed with those hypotheticals and put everyone in their place. And I remember, oh God, please don't call me, please don't call me. I didn't do all the just tell me if you guys haven't had that thought. But so my name was Williams, and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's going alphabetically, so I still got some time. But I remember getting called. I remember getting called on Hackbart versus Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if they still use that one in torts class. Yeah. And invariably, so I was doing my reading before, and I thought, oh God, I know I'm going to get called on this one, and it happened. And I got called, and I was able to, at least, if not knock it out of the park, I was at least able to engage in conversation with this very brilliant professor that I had. And from that moment forward, I was hooked on law and the ability to think critically about issues, think about it from all different angles, and I am so thankful that I was sort of supported and pushed in that direction to be able to get that means of thinking and analyzing information. I enjoyed my practice of law, but I used it every day when I was with a fairly large firm. But I really think I find more use out of it today in my everyday working as an administrator than I might have even as a lawyer. It's a great means of being able to attack your profession, no matter what that profession is, and I couldn't be more thankful of my opportunity to do that.
Help us understand why you decided to attend law school. I mean, you're playing in the NFL. Were you already thinking about what's next? How do I transition after I leave this career?
Okay, well, without getting too boring with it, so I grew up in Southern California, and I had the opportunity to be in a media market that had some great personalities. So we had Dick Enberg doing the Angel games. We had Vin Scully doing the Dodger games. The writer from the LA Times, really funny guy. I'm blanking on the name right now. Hope it wasn't that concussion thing again. Jim Murray, that's it. Yeah, there you go. So I grew up sort of thinking I want to be a sports writer, and I got to Notre Dame and then in the NFL, and I hung around these guys all the time. I said, I don't want to be a sports writer. And so I was influenced by a gentleman who had just retired. He was just coming to the end of his career. His name is Dick Ambrose. He's a judge now in Cleveland. He just handled a big mass murder trial that was really interesting, and he was really conflicted by his Catholic principles, and it was really interesting. But he's a very interesting guy, and he had just retired, and he had just gone on to law school, and I kept in touch with him, and he was sort of my sort of inspiration, and I'm sure many of the students here have had inspiring figures in their lives. Well, Dick Ambrose was that for me, and I thought, that's really interesting. I like how that played out for you, and I like how you think about things. And so I said I want to dip my toe in and try that. So that's kind of how I started, and then the support along the way was fantastic.
Yeah. Let's take some questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. There are little buttons in front of you. Press down on the rim, hold that down, and we'll be able to hear your questions. We'll go right over here.
Thank you, Larry. I wanted to ask about something that relates to the concussion thing, but it's a different problem, and it's the ACL problem with our women athletes.
Yeah.
The last game that we played against Louisville, our three best guards all had ACL problems. Some of them out for the year and so on. And it's just been an epidemic over the years.
Right.
The women just seem to have this. Now, isn't that also vulnerable to the same kind of problems? ACL isn't as serious as concussions, but still.
Yeah, no, I think it's a perplexing problem for us. You hit it right on the head. It is unbelievable the rate of ACL injury that we have in the female population, and you know there's a whole host of folks that are really studying that closely. And so we're anxious for that information to be able to respond to it. In the meantime, there aren't a whole lot of things that we can do to combat that. We've really tried to take a close look at developing the young ladies' balance between their quad and hamstring strength, in the hope that on deceleration, when most of these injuries occur, that their hamstrings are actually strong enough to be able to withstand the strength of their quads. So when you're on deceleration, you're firing your quads. And what happens a lot of times is that quad fires so hard that it takes the joint right out of, because the hamstring isn't balanced in terms of its strength. So our weight staff is really keen on trying to make sure that we do everything we can to get great balance between the quad and the hamstring strength. Back at Portland, we had a program that our women's soccer coach instituted, which I thought was really interesting. And bear in mind, this is an elite level. We had, I think, of the first 4 goals scored in the U.S. versus Canada game, all 4 were scored by kids that played on our teams. So we were really high end. We won national championships and whatnot. But he had a rule that, and I don't mean to be too graphic, but if a female doesn't feel right on that day, she didn't have to practice. So be it menstruation or some other illness, don't play. Don't practice. Just sit on the sideline. We know you're doing everything you can to stay fit, and you don't have to show your toughness. If you're not feeling right, you don't practice. And our injury rate, once he instituted that program, really went down. And I don't know if it's anecdotal. I don't know if it's happenstance, but boy, I was cheering the result because it's remarkable in the sports, especially in soccer, where you have a lot of deceleration and cutting. And then you see it in basketball. And I would say third, you probably see it most in volleyball, though not quite as much in volleyball. But soccer is really the one that, even more than basketball, that really gets them.
Let me take other questions here. There you go. I'm going to make sure I'm getting over there. Let's go back to this gentleman here, and then we'll come to you in the plaid shirt, okay? Thanks.
Just a quick question. I was listening to a radio program maybe a week or two, and the topic was the amount of money that universities spend on student athletes. And the example that they gave was that student A, who was a chemistry major, university might spend $20,000. Student B, who was a varsity baseball player, might be closer to the $80,000 and $90,000 range. So just in your experience, is that accurate? And kind of what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my guess is most of those stats came from the EADA reports that all of us Division I schools are required to submit. And those are all collated in the Department of Ed website. And so my guess is that most of those stats came from that. And you can beat the numbers up to tell any story you want them to tell. But the reality is we in athletics are making a significant investment for 2 outcomes that we expect as an institution. The first outcome is the opportunity to build community. Right? So when you're in the Bradley Center and you hear, we are Marquette, there aren't many ways in that chemistry room to be able to create that kind of cohesion around anything, right? And then the second outcome is the opportunity to tell the great stories that are happening on campus through the medium of athletics. So when the talking heads get on ESPN and Doug Gottlieb says, I guess he's not at ESPN anymore, but when the talking heads get on and say, yeah, Marquette, what a great place, they do a great job with their student athletes, it lends value to other areas of campus beyond just athletics. So the 2 outcomes that the university should expect from their investment in the enterprise of elite level athletics is the building of community and enhanced awareness that can come through the communication tool of athletics. So now, does that mean that this investment is worthwhile as it relates to the investment in chemistry? That's for each school to determine as they see fit. But I'm a firm proponent of the spend being worth every penny, that we get great outcomes from our student athletes, but the university also enjoys some wonderful benefits as well. Is that responsive to your question? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Sir, what weight do you give to winning for a coach when you evaluate him or her after they meet all the other criteria you've established?
Well, it's a wonderful question, but an answer that moves with each circumstance, right? So what weight do I give winning to a program that we're not able to fully fund from a scholarship perspective or a travel perspective or a facilities perspective? What weight do I give to winning there? Well, they certainly don't have to be competing for national championships in that evaluation. But ultimately, and likewise, for a sport that is fully funded and fully supported in every single regard, then winning becomes a more key component in the evaluation at the end of every season, because there is an investment in things greater, and the wins are important. But ultimately, the measure, and I don't want to diminish that which you said after everything else is measured, because there are some really other key components, and that is, are the student athletes growing as young men and women? Are they growing as academicians? Are they on their track to graduation? Have those that have matriculated through completed their education, and are they transformed as people? So I don't want to minimize those levels as well, because they're really important in the evaluation of how we're doing things. So, soft answer to your question, because each situation is just a little bit different.
Other questions? Let me go right here.
Obviously, Big East basketball was a financial beast. They brought in a lot of revenue. In the decision to leave the Big East, was there ever a fear, or is there a fear that the new conference and Marquette was going to take some sort of financial hit?
Yes, certain. I'm not sure if fear is an appropriate description to it, but concern, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's a risk involved with some of these things, but we were very thoughtful in evaluating that risk. And without going into too many details, let me say that we did our homework, and we were very confident that the result from a media standpoint was going to be in the positive. So, and I'll kind of leave it at that, and I think you'll see history will play itself out that it will be a good risk to have taken. I'm confident.
Let me go back here.
In regards to the men's basketball team, Bradley Center, the venue currently, does Marquette have any leverage with the scheduling of games or the times of the games?
Well, yeah, relative to the Bradley Center, let me say that the folks at the Bradley Center are actually work with us very well. Steve tries to be as cooperative as he possibly can, because he's got to turn in dates that we try to reserve to the NBA for their scheduling, and then the Admirals have to be thrown into the mix after that. But let me say the folks at the Bradley Center are really thoughtful about how they can accommodate our needs. What's driving a lot of the start times is TV. So the deal that the conference has with ESPN has among its provisions an opportunity for ESPN to place games at various times to hit television windows, to hit the broadest audience. And so in those uncomfortable situations relative to time, tip times, it's largely a TV question as opposed to a Bradley Center question. Again, the Bradley Center folks have been great with us.
Other questions?
Please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a major concern. Yeah, it's a major concern. We feel fortunate to have the Valley Fields, and think those are really viable, continuing spots for us to recreate. But we need more. The campus needs more, and so I'm anxious. I might have gotten myself in trouble here by advocating for this so soon, but it's something that we really need as an institution to be thoughtful about it. Now, we want to be great partners with the city and make sure that we're not encumbering somebody's desires or goals. But where appropriate, I think Marquette has shown to be a great partner to the city to help revitalize areas and grow prosperity for all.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Do you think that recent NCAA rule changes pertaining to recruiting, essentially opening the door to more contact with recruits, is a positive move for college athletics? Do you think it's going to fuel a widening gap between high major and mid-major programs?
That's a great question. I see just over your shoulder our director of compliance, and I might defer to her to respond to that. But philosophically, I think the NCAA is being very thoughtful in in saying to the schools that are members of this association, hey, you guys got to police yourselves first. And then we will come in and make sure that we evaluate how you've done relative to the rules that we all agree we play by. But the first obligation is on the schools themselves. And I think that's a healthy position to put the schools in, because we've got to take care of our own houses first. I only see positives coming from it. And to the extent there are any students in here interested in getting into college athletics, obviously compliance is the door in which you go. Most logically, my daughter has now done it, and she's trying to make her way in this industry. It's actually a great way to get involved and to really get a great understanding of how college athletics works from a fundamental level. So to the extent I'm sort of playing off of that, but to the extent there are any students in here that are interested in college athletics, I would say first look at where you are compliance-wise, whether the opportunity is there.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Department of Education.
Yes.
What is the role that the Department of Education would play in all of this? Do they have to, once this is all put together, does this have to go to some governmental agency to approve all of this, or what is their role? How do they?
I'm sorry. Please tell me what this is.
Well,
what this are you referring to? In general?
Yeah.
No, the Department of Ed does not oversee college athletics. It oversees the enterprise of education. And so to the extent an institution receives federal funds, then it's subject to the requirements of the Department of Ed. So, that plays out in all kinds of different arenas. But we as an institution, in all of our facets, including athletics, are subject to the rules of the Department of Education. Is that a fair? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I saw another hand. Yes, sir.
I'm a Marquette alum, class of '78.
Good
And
years.
the question I have is, what do you see in recruiting, going from the Big East to a no-name conference for the athlete that wants to showcase his talent?
Yeah. Well. We've signed the fall guys, so I can talk about them, right? Okay. Checking with my compliance person. Tell you a story. So we signed a young man to the basketball team this fall who was recruited very heavily by a school right down the road from him, 150 miles down the road from him, called Alabama. I've heard of it. Yeah, unfortunately, I've heard of it.
Are you over that now?
Yeah. That hurt. Anyway, recruited very heavily by Alabama, and Juwan is a really talented basketball player that can play at the elite level. He signed with Marquette because Marquette is committed almost singularly to the pursuit of greatness in his sport. So he walks on this campus, and he knows that he's supported from soup to nuts in developing his skill as a basketball player and his educational interests. And so we won that battle because he wasn't interested in going and being the 86th most important person on Alabama's campus, but could potentially be one of the 10 most important people in his sport on this campus in terms of athletics. Marquette pays such a great investment in his sport that he recognized, this is where I want to be because that's going to make me everything that I can be. And I'm fully confident that we will have those stories play out over and over. You'll see it from the coaching ranks. You'll see it from administrative ranks. I believe that you'll see that folks will say, wait, Marquette does it right. And so no matter what sport you pick, there's a great commitment to what you're doing. So while there is risk involved, and I absolutely recognize that, I do fully expect that we'll continue to be among the most elite programs relative to basketball. Mm-hmm. Fair enough? Okay.
I was just wondering if you could speak briefly about costs, the potential for payment of athletes, stipends to athletes, which always seems to come around. If that were allowed by the NCAA, is that something Marquette could afford to do, or?
Yeah, well, before I get to whether or not it can or would afford to do it, philosophically, and I come from that environment. I mean, I lived it. I lived it both as an amateur and then as a pro. My kids have lived it. I've worked in it for the last, I don't know how many years. I am fundamentally opposed to paying student athletes. That's not this game. What we provide in college athletics is the opportunity to pursue high-end academic achievement with high-end athletic achievement. If you don't like that, okay. In most of the sports, you have other options. So in baseball, I think baseball's got the best system where they say you get drafted and at a high school, and you can pick either the pro ranks and go up that rank, or if you decide to go to college, you got to stay 3 years, and you're going to get a meaningful education in your 3 years there, if not your degree then or soon thereafter. I think baseball's got a great system. But I'm fundamentally opposed to it because there's such great value in the opportunity to be a student athlete that it's just unquantifiable. Yeah, you could add up all the dollars. It's $250,000 per student for a full ride. Let's put that number on the table. So it's at least worth $250,000. But the earning potential that you're then given as a student athlete is worth untold numbers. So there is great value. So don't get the sense that we're not providing anything to these young men and young women of value. There's great value for their commitment to it. Our commitment will pay in spades. If you want to be a pro, that's great. That's a wonderful pursuit. Go be a pro, right? Go do it. I'm here to tell you, it ain't an easy way to make a living. It ain't an easy way to feed your family because it hurts. You go through injuries. I can't tell you how many shots I was talked into taking to numb my shoulder to be able to go out and play, to be able to make my next contract. It's a brutal way to make a living, and I think that the approach that colleges are taking is so valuable in the lives of young men and young women. The chances of even being able to earn great numbers as a pro, man, those odds are really stacked against you. But we can give you tools for a lifetime. So I'm going to try and talk every one of the student athletes or potential prodigies to think long and hard about making sure that they commit to the college environment. Now, would Marquette be willing to participate in that? We haven't come to a conclusion on that. But I will hearken back to our fundamental commitment to playing at the elite level of college athletics. If I could just append to it really quickly just for the lawyers in the group, and there's a few of you I imagine, but think about the antitrust and not-for-profit status that the colleges currently enjoy. Were we to go to a pay-for-play system, don't you think those things would be called into question? Aren't they fairly called into question at that point, if not now? I would say that soon after we would go to that model, we would lose both in both arenas. That's just one man's opinion.
I'm going to wrap things up there. Let's give another nice round of applause to Larry Williams. Thank you, Mike.